Whoa! That's quite a question, right? But it's at the very heart of what we're digging into today. It's this powerful image that honestly captures a feeling so many people are wrestling with. This shiny surface that might just be hiding a much, much darker reality. So let's unpack what's really going on here.
In this explainer, we're tackling the affordability crisis. And it's a weird one because you've got these two sides of the economic coin. On one side, you have record-breaking data that suggests everything's great. But on the other, there's this deep, nagging anxiety that people are feeling at their kitchen tables all across the country. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Let's get into it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the strange puzzle of this year's holiday spending. Then we'll look at the official story, the administration's case for a strong economy. After that, we'll peel back the layers and look at the hidden debt that's causing all this strain. Then we'll check out the proposed solution, and finally we'll have to ask, is this a real recovery or a crisis that's only just getting started?
Okay, let's dive right into this paradox. On the surface, it seriously looks like American consumers are on an absolutely historic spending spree. But as you're about to see, the real story is, well, it's a lot more complicated and frankly, a lot more concerning than it looks.
So check this out. Projections show the 2025 holiday season is on track to be the biggest in U.S. history for online spending. We're talking a staggering $253.4 billion. That's a 5.3% jump from last year's frenzy. I mean, that's a clear sign of a booming economy, right? Well, maybe not so fast. Let's look a little closer.
Just take Black Friday. It tells pretty much the same story. Shoppers dropped nearly $12 billion online. That's a massive figure. That just shatters previous records. It really suggests people are confident that they have money to spend. But here's the crucial question. Whose money is it, really?
And here it is. This is where that whole sunny, optimistic story starts to fall apart. A huge chunk of that record spending wasn't paid for with savings. It was fueled by debt. The use of those buy now, pay later services surged by almost 9% on Black Friday alone. You see, this creates a totally false sense of security because it's not really spending, it's borrowing to spend, and that pushes a massive financial time bomb into the future.
Okay, so now let's switch gears and look at the official story, the one coming out of Washington. From their perspective, they see these numbers, and a bunch of others, as clear-cut proof that their policies are working and that the economy is fundamentally strong. This is the core message, right here. It was presented at a recent White House Economic Roundtable, and it's a simple, really powerful narrative. The affordability problem? That was inherited. And the current administration? They're actively fixing it. And this whole argument really rests on a few key pieces of data.
First up, the job market. The 4-week average for new unemployment claims is just exceptionally low. Now, to put that into perspective for you, economists usually start getting really nervous about a recession when this number gets up to around 350,000. We're sitting at just over 214,000. So this data suggests a very, very stable job market, not one that's about to fall off a cliff.
And that brings us to the second pillar of their argument, your paycheck. In the short term, yeah, the numbers do look pretty good. Wage income is up 5.3%, while a key measure of inflation is down at 2.7%. So what does that mean? It means right now your paycheck is actually growing about 2.6% faster than prices are. So if jobs are stable and wages are finally beating inflation, why doesn't it feel that way for so many people?
To answer that question, we have to look past the recent headlines. We've got to dig into the fine print of the last few years. And this is where we find the data that explains that persistent, nagging feeling of being squeezed, even with those positive signs. And boom, here it is. This is where the whole problem becomes crystal clear. When you zoom out and you look at the big picture since January 2021, the story completely flips on its head. Prices have actually risen faster than wages, which means there's been a net loss in your real purchasing power. That little gain we're seeing right now, it just hasn't been anywhere near enough to close a gap that's been getting wider for years. And on top of all that, the actual cost of being in debt is getting more and more expensive. Overdraft charges, credit card interest, late fees, they are all climbing. So even if your paycheck got a little bigger, these rising costs are just eating away at any gains you might have made, making it harder and harder to ever get ahead.
So, what's the administration's long-term plan to fix all this? Well, the whole strategy really hinges on one big idea, sparking a massive wave of business investment. You'll hear economists call this a capex boom. Capex is really just short for capital expenditures. It's the money that companies spend on big-ticket items, to grow their business.
And if you look at the data, it actually seems to be working. Business spending on things like new machinery, equipment, and brand new factories has surged an incredible 9.1% just over the past year. The administration points directly to this as a result of tax incentives that were designed to encourage this exact kind of investment.
So, how is this supposed to help the average person? Well, here's the theory, broken down into 5 steps. First, you give businesses tax breaks. They then use that extra cash to invest and build new stuff, like factories. Now, to run those factories, they've got to hire more people. And in a tight job market like the one we have now, companies are forced to offer higher wages to attract workers. And ultimately, those higher wages should make everybody feel more financially secure. That's the plan anyway.
So yeah, that's the theory, but what's the reality on the ground? In this last section, we're going to bring it all together and look at the verdict from the perspective of American families who are still, day in and day out, struggling to make ends meet.
Just look at these numbers. Since 2019, the cost of absolute necessities has just exploded. Childcare, up 40%. Healthcare premiums, up 41%. Groceries are up 32%. And all the while, average earnings have only gone up by 29%. This, right here, is the affordability crisis in a nutshell. Wages are simply not keeping up with the real cost of just living.
And these numbers aren't just abstract stats on a screen. For Maria in Atlanta, that buy now, pay later joy from the holidays is quickly turning into a debt spiral she can't get out of. And for Jamal in Chicago, that new factory job with its 3.6% raise, it's been completely wiped out by a massive 80% surge in housing costs right in his neighborhood. The big picture economic theory just isn't translating into relief for real people.
And looking ahead, a lot of economists are starting to sound the alarm. They're warning that certain policies, like new tariffs, which are basically just taxes on goods we import, and this broader move away from global supply chains could actually push prices even higher. And that would just make this whole affordability crisis even worse, no matter what happens with business investment.
Which leaves us with this final, crucial question. The data is a battlefield, right? You've got all these conflicting signals. Are we just seeing the painful but necessary steps of a real economic recovery? Or are all these warning signs, the hidden debt, the soaring cost of essentials, are they pointing to an even bigger storm just over the horizon? The answer to that is going to define the financial future for millions of us.